Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this tutorial, we're gonna go ahead and implement the viewing other users' tweets feature. So first, let me show you what we are going to implement. So here, if I click on this send icon, we are inside the send tweet activity. So here, you can see that we can enter something here and then we can send a tweet. But take a look at this button here, view other users' tweets. If I click on it, look what happens. You can see that we are getting the tweets of the user that this current user, the user that is logged in, is actually following. So this current user can only get the tweets of the other users that this current user is following. So for example, this current user is actually following some other users here. You can see that, for example, the current user is following John, Jack, Monica, Joey, Ross, Angela. But here you can see that we are only getting the tweets of Angela. Why? Because other users don't have any tweets yet. So here you should go ahead and first you can see that I have created a class called myTweet. So these are the tweets of Angela, you can see here. If you want to, you should go ahead and create other tweets for other users. So for example, if you click on the user class, you can see the other users. For example, Joey, Ross, Maury, Monica, John, Jack. So here you can go to the myTweet class and then you can click on add a row, this button here, and then here you should only specify some values. So for example, you should specify the user. So for example, I can double click here and I can just type in here Maury. The user is Maury. Make sure that you put the name of the user that is already signed up to the parse. So this is the exact username that we have inside the user class. And the tweet is, for example, I love Android programming. So this is the tweet of Maury. And if I switch to the user class, you can see that the same username we have here, Maury. And then inside this myTweet class, this is the user Maury and this is the tweet. And here, if you can see that this current user is actually following some other users, but it is not following the Maury yet. So if I click on Maury in order to follow it, and then click on this send icon and then click on view other users tweets, let's see what happens. You can see that we are getting the tweet of Maury, I love Android programming, and here you can see the name of the user of this tweet. So here notice that this is not the regular list view. This list view has a title and a subtitle. So in other words, this list view has an item and a sub item. So you need to go ahead and search online a little bit about this type of list view. And also we are going to learn about another feature of Java programming language. But here I want you to go ahead and do your best in order to solve this challenge and in order to implement this feature here. And then after implementing this feature, after doing your best to solve this challenge, you can go ahead and continue watching this tutorial and see how I am going to solve this problem. So good luck. So first, let's go ahead and design the layout. Let me show you the project navigator. And then here you can see that we have this activity send tweet.xml file. So here you can see that I have added this button. So first, take a look at these constraints. You can see that I added this button and I added a constraint from the top edge of this button to the bottom edge of this send tweet button. And I have also added a constraint from the bottom edge of this button to the top edge of this button. So if you cannot add the constraints, so for example, if I delete this top constraint by clicking on it, and if I also delete this constraint, so now I'm gonna add the constraints again. First, let me select this button and I'm gonna add the constraint to the bottom edge of this button. And then I'm gonna create a constraint from the bottom edge of this button to the top edge of this button. I'm gonna select this button and I'm gonna take a look at this attribute section. Make sure that you are seeing less attributes here. Here you can see the attributes. I just need to click on this plus sign and now the constraint is added to the bottom edge of this button. Okay, So you can see that we also have a list view here. So this list view, you can see that we have a constraint from the bottom edge of this button to the top edge of this list view, but there is no constraint from the top edge of this list view to the bottom edge of this button. And we have the right, bottom, and left constraint. The ID of this list view is view tweets list view. And this button, you can see that I changed the background color and the text color. You already know how to do that. The ID is btn view tweets. So here, let's go into our activity and let's see what we have done there. Let's go and open the send tweet activity class. And by the way, I have also pushed my changes to GitHub. You can go to my GitHub and you can take a look at the projects that I have uploaded there. So here, if I double click on this tab in order to make this area wider, so these are the previous codes, but first let me tell you that I have declared this list view here inside the class view tweets list view, and I have also declared this button btn view tweets. And then inside this onCreate method, I have initialized my variables, the view tweets list view, and then btn view tweets. And I have also specified an onClick listener for this button. So btn view tweets dot set onClick listener this. So this means that this class send tweet activity is now implementing this view.onClick listener interface. So because it is implementing this view.onClick listener interface, this class must override the onClick method. So let me scroll down here, the onClick method here. So now inside this onClick method, let's see what we are doing here. I'm gonna explain to you what's going on here exactly line by line. First, let's take a look at this line of code, line number 82. We have a variable, it is final or it is a constant, and it is of type array list. And this array list can hold values of type hash map that the key is going to be string and the value is going to be string. So what is this hash map? First, let me teach you hash map. So here, let me scroll to the onCreate method. Before the ending curly brace of this onCreate method, I'm going to talk about hash map or map. So hash map is a data type. I'm going to type in here hash map. It is in the java.util package. I'm going to just put it here. And then I'm going to put a pair of angle brackets. So a hash map is just a key or a value, a key value pair. So if you are coming from other programming languages like Swift, a hash map is like dictionary. So what do I mean by that? So for example, inside the angle bracket for the data type of the key, I'm going to just type in here string. And for the, I'm just going to put a comma here, and I'm going to specify the data type of the value. So I'm going to say the data type of the value is going to be integer. So I'm going to just type in int. Okay. So now here it is showing us an error before this, below this integer data type. It says type argument cannot be of type primitive. So it says that integer, it cannot be used here because it is primitive. I'm going to use the integer class. So now it can be used because integer class can be used in order to create objects, and hash map is actually an object. And now I need to specify the name of my variable. Remember, hash map is just a type like any other types. We need to also specify a name for a variable of type hash map. So I'm going to say that, for example, the name is going to be number, assignment operator, and then I'm going to initialize it. I'm going to say new hash map, and then semicolon. So this is the syntax that we use in order to create a hash map. Inside the angle brackets, we need to specify the data type of the key, which is now string, and the data type of the value, which is now integer. And then we need to say new hash map object in order to just assign it to this variable. Now that we have this hash map object, I'm gonna just put some values to it. I'm gonna say number dot put. So the method put needs two arguments. The first argument is going to be the key. So I specified the key to be string. So I'm gonna say number 1. So this is the key. comma, and now we need to specify the data type of the value. I'm going to just put number 1 here, semicolon. So now I have put the value number 1 for this key number 1 inside this hash map. This means that hash map is like array. Array is just a collection of values. But what's the difference between hash map and array? An array is an ordered collection of values. There is an order there. But in hash map, there is no order. There is just the key and the value. When we provide the key here, we can access the value. So here, for example, let's first modify the name of our variable because it's not meaningful enough. This is a collection type. Let's change it to numbers. And then let's say numbers.put. Now I'm going to say numbers.put, and we need to specify the key first. So I'm going to put 2 quotes, and I'm going to say number 2 as the key, comma, and I'm going to provide the value number 2 as the value, semicolon. So how we can access our values inside this hash map? It's simple. I can just say numbers dot get. So when you call the get method on a hash map object, you can see that it's now required that we provide the key so that it can give us the value of that specific key. So I'm gonna, for example, enter the value number 1. We need to pass the same key that we put here, semicolon. So now let me go ahead and create a fancy toast message and show you that we actually get the value number 1. So I'm going to say fancy toast.make text. So let's pass the context. The message is going to be numbers.get. So I'm going to cut this value and paste it here. Let me delete this semicolon here. And then, so the second argument of this toast message needs a value of type string or char sequence. I'm going to convert it to a string value, and then comma. Then we need to specify the duration, length short, comma. Next, I'm going to specify the type of this message. I'm going to say fancy toast dot, let's choose, for example, warning this time, comma. Next, let's also specify the icon to be true and then call the show method. So now let's go ahead and let's run our application and see that whether we get the value number 1 from this hash map or not. Let me show you the emulator. So now let me click on this icon, and here you can see number 1 here, right? So let me change this duration to long, and if I run the app, here you should see number 1. So here it says, you can see this number 1 here. So this means that it is working perfectly, and that's what really hash map is. It is just a collection of values, but an unordered collection of values. So hopefully that makes sense. Now that you know about hash map, let's go ahead and build our application. Let me first comment out these lines of code, and then I'm gonna just commit and push my changes to the GitHub, and I'm gonna name it as hash map. So later when you want to refer to it, you can see what is a hash map really is. And I'm going to click on commit and push. So commit. And I forgot to click on commit and push. I'm going to click on VCS again, and I'm going to go ahead and click on git and then click on push. So let's click on origin master, push. So now that we learned about hash map, let's go inside this onClick method. Now you can see that what this variable really is. So here we have a variable of type array list. This array list, inside the angle brackets, we need to specify the data type of the values that we want to put inside this array list. I want to put a hash map, a value of type hash map that accepts the value string as the key and the value string as the value, okay? And then the name of this variable is tweet list. So we have an array of hash map objects here. And then I am just creating a new object of type array list. Next, here, we are creating a variable of type simple adapter. So notice that here I told you that we are not using the regular list view. Our list view has a title and a sub item here. So here you can see that I cannot see the title of the first item, so I need to go to the activity send tweet.xml file. So here for these kinds of layouts that you have some UI components below each other, I recommend that you use the linear layout instead of constraint layout. So because linear layout works better here, I'm gonna change it to linear layout, and I'm gonna scroll down here and make sure that the ending tag is also linear layout. So here you can see that some of our UI components are still using constraint layouts. So we need to go ahead and change them. So for example, you can see this edit text, the layout width is 0 dp. I'm gonna change it to match parent. And here these are the margin values. And I also wanted to let you know about this ems attribute. The ems attribute is just the width of the letter M, so the capital letter M. And when we say ems, number 10, this means that the width of this edit text can hold 10 letters of letter M inside of it. The width of it can hold, for example, 10 letters of M. That's what this ems really means. Let me delete it here. And here it is the hint attribute and the input type. So here are the constraints attributes. I'm going to delete them because we are using linear layout. And also for this button, we need to go ahead and delete the attributes that are related to the constraint layout. I'm going to just select them and then delete them. And also this button here, make sure that you do not delete the ID, only the attributes that are related to constraint layout. So now if I switch to the design, so here you can see that it's not organized yet. Let me switch to the text tab, and here for this linear layout, let's specify another attribute, which is going to be orientation, and let's set it to be vertical. Let's go to the design tab. So now everything is back, but we still cannot see the btn view tweets. I'm gonna select it here inside this componentry section, and I'm gonna set the layout width to be match parent. So now it is back. And then also this button here, I want this button to be at the center, horizontally centered. So I'm gonna select it, and I'm gonna switch to the view all attributes, and let's search for layout gravity, and let's set the value center horizontal to be true. So now it is centered. Now let's run our app, and let's see that everything is working fine without any problems. So let me click on this button. So now it is good. Let me click on this edit text. So it is fine. And also if you have, for example, more than 10 or 20 items inside this list view, the list view is scrollable. This means that we can scroll on this list view and see other items. Don't worry about the height of this list view. Now, here you can see that there is some space between this button and this button. That's because of the margin button. So I'm gonna open the layout margin, and here you can see that the margin button is 63 dp. I'm gonna delete it and choose 8 dp. So now it is fine. Let me run it again and make sure that there is no error, and then we can continue. So if I click on this button, so now you can see that everything is working fine. Let's go back to our Java file. So here we have this simple adapter. The reason that I am using the simple adapter is that we are not using a regular list view. We have an item and a sub item. The item is going to be the name of the user and the owner of the tweet, and the sub item is going to be the tweet itself. So that's why we have a different adapter called simple adapter. The name is adapter. new simple adapter. So this adapter constructor, the constructor of this simple adapter needs some arguments. First, we need to pass the context like any other adapters that you create. So the context is going to be sent tweet activity.this. Next, we have the tweet list. So this is our array list. This is the data source that we are going to use in order to populate our list view. So here you can see that we are getting the username and the tweet of that username from our data source, from our array list here. So here we are referring to our array list. The third argument is going to be the type of the row that we are going to use inside our layout, inside our list view. So before we used simple list item number 1, right? Now we are using simple list item number 2. That's why we have item and sub item. So I am using android.r.layout.simple list item number 2. And then we have this argument. We have an array of string values. So let's see what are these values. So in order to create an array of string values on the spot, you need to use the new keyword because an array is an object in Java, and then the data type, and then a pair of brackets. In order to put values inside the array, we need to put a pair of curly braces, and then we can put values here. So the first value is going to be the key of the first value that we are going to show to the user. So here you can see that we have the username of the tweet and we also have the tweet itself. So this is going to be the key of the username. So that's why I put tweet username here, because we are going to get these values from hash map. That's why I am specifying the keys here. So the first value is going to be, its key is going to be tweet username, comma, and then we need to have the tweet itself. So I put tweet value here as a string value. So here we have another argument, which is going to be the final argument. And it is going to be, again, an array, but this time it is going to be of type integer. So new integer array, a pair of curly braces. So let's see what we have here. We have actually the item and the sub item. So here we can see that it is in order. So for example, the tweet username should be on the list view, but as the title. I want the username to be as the title, and then I want the tweet itself to be as the subtitle, for example. So that's why we have this integer array. Here we are specifying that as the first value, we are going to have android.r.id.text1, which is going to be for the tweet username, comma, and then we have android.r.id.text2, which is going to be for the tweet itself, for the tweet value. Okay, but for example, if you want to change the place of these two values, and for example, you want to have the tweet value as the title, and then you want to have the username as the subtitle. So you just need to change the place of these two values. First, you need to put android.r.id.text2, and then you need to put android.r.id.text1. So hopefully that makes sense. Or you can also change the place of these two values. First, you can put tweet value and then tweet username, and then here we can say that the text1 to be for the tweet value and the text2 to be for the username. So hopefully that makes sense. So this is how we create the simple adapter object. Now that we have this adapter, we need to put our parse codes inside a try block, because sometimes when we want to get the tweets of other users, maybe other users don't have any tweets yet. In that case, if we try to go ahead and create a query from the tweets that don't exist yet, our application is going to crash, because we are creating a query from a class that there is no object in it yet. So in that case, our application is going to crash. So that's why I put the try block here. So the try catch actually. And then in this way we get the catch. In this way we can catch the exception if it actually froze. So inside this try block we have the query code, so you already know about querying. And here I have a query. We want to get parse objects. The name is parse query. So parse query that gets query. We want to get tweet objects from this my tweet class. So here you can see the name of the class. And then we have this condition. We want to get the tweets of the users that the current user of the app is actually following. So I am saying parse query dot where contained in, first we need to pass the key. Here you can see that inside this class my tweet we have this column name user. Okay, so here we are saying the key to be user, the column name to be user, and we want to get the tweets of the users that the current user of the app, the user that is logged in, is actually following. So I am saying parse user dot get current user dot get the list of the tweets of the persons that the current user is following. So that's why I am referring to this fan of column of this parse user, of the current parse user. And if the users that we are getting from the parse server are the ones that are inside the fan of column of the current user, then we can get those tweets. Hopefully that makes sense. And then here we have the find in background method. So parse query dot find in background, we have the find callback. So here we have the done method. If the objects that we get from the server dot size is greater than 0 and there is no error, we can be sure that we are actually getting objects. So here we have a for loop in order to iterate over the tweet objects or the parse objects that we get from the server. So parse object, and I changed this name to tweet object. And then here I want to iterate over these objects that we get from the server. So here inside this for loop, this is very important. Here we are creating our hash map. So the reason that I am creating a hash map object inside this for loop is that I want every time that this for loop executes, I want to have a new object of type hash map that accepts the value string as the key and the value string as the value itself. So the name of this hash map object is going to be user tweet, assignment operator, new hash map object. And then we are putting some values into our hash map first. We are saying user tweet dot put, here it is the key, tweet username, and the value that we want to put to this hash map relating to this key is going to be tweet object that we get from the server dot get string user. So we want to get the user of the tweet itself. So that's why I put the user key here. You can see this user key. And then now that we have put the user key as the value of this tweet username key, then we are going to say user tweet dot put. Then we have the key tweet value, the tweet itself. Then we are going to specify the actual value of this key, which is going to be tweet object that we get from the server dot get string, and then the name of the key or the name of the column is going to be tweet. So here you can see the name of the column tweet. We want to get the value of this column. So that's why I passed tweet here. So the value of this tweet is going to be related to this tweet value key. Next, we are going to add this hash map object with these keys and values to our tweet list, which is of type array list. So notice that our tweet list here is of type array list that accepts objects of type hash map that has the string as the key and the string as the value. That's why we can add this user tweet to our array list. So I am saying tweet list dot add to user tweet. After this for loop executes for each tweet object that we get from the server, then we are going to specify the adapter of our list view. So I am saying view tweet this view dot set adapter. Notice that the adapter type is simple adapter. And then here you can see also the catch statement. So here we are catching the exception if anything goes wrong regarding the querying data. So now we are ready to run our application and see what happens. So now you can see that the current user is following these other users. And if I go ahead and click on this send icon and click on view other users tweets, now we should see the tweets of the users that the current user is actually following. So for example, if I click on back, you can see that the current user is following Joey or Monica. Let's go to the server and let's say that let's add a new row here. Let's click on add a row. And let's say that the tweet is going to be I like app development. And let's say the user is going to be, for example, let me use Ross. And then press on enter key on your keyboard. Here you can see that it says my tweet with this ID updated. So this object is added to this my tweet class. Now we can go to the emulator, and here you can see that the current user is already following the Ross. I'm going to click on this send icon and I'm going to click on this button. Now you should see the tweet of Ross, I like app development. So hopefully that makes sense. And here let's also test that what happens if the current user doesn't follow a user in the app. So for example, the current user doesn't follow David, right? So now I'm gonna go ahead and add a new row here, and I'm gonna say the tweet is I like football, and the user is going to be David. So now you can see that it says this tweet is updated. Now let's go to the emulator, and I'm gonna just click on the send icon. Notice that the current user doesn't follow David, so we should not see the tweet of David here. So you can see that there is no David tweet here. Hopefully that makes sense. So congratulations, you have created your own Twitter clone application. Now it's time to move on to the WhatsApp clone app. So in the next section, we're gonna go ahead and create our own WhatsApp clone app. And I look forward to seeing you in the next section.